Next slide. I recently had to complete sales training as a part of company onboarding. Fortunately, I escaped it by using Nifi to automate my presentation in just a couple of hours. But instead of rehashing that presentation, let's get recursive by having Nifi explain itself. Next slide. Without further ado, Hortonworks Dataflow is proud to present itself, presenting the Sales Account Manager Simulator, powered by Apache Nifi. What you see here is the main Nifi HTML5 canvas with a processor group running on a MacBook Pro, but you could run it on practically anything, for example a Raspberry Pi, a block of cheese running Windows 10, or a fancy executive smartwatch. On Apple machines, Nifi is available via Homebrew, but you can also download it from hortonworks.com and be up and running in just a few minutes. Next slide. Here are the handful of drag and drop processes that make it work, with no lines of complex programming required. Now we'll quickly run through what they do and how to set them up. Next slide. Firstly, we use a list file processor with this configuration to list all of the text files in the directory. Then connect it to a fetch file processor with a default configuration. This will read all the files from disk and pass them down our data flow. Next slide. Now we route our slide text into an update attribute processor, which we configure to set a priority attribute using the number of the slide as shown. This will allow us to ensure that the slides are read in the correct order. Route the updated slide texts into a split text processor, which will break them out into one line at a time using the displayed configuration. Next slide. Now route the output from your split text processor to our execute stream command processor. Configure it to use the Apple OS XA command as shown, or some other text-to-speech processor that sounds like the sales executive you want to simulate. You will also need to configure the queue to use a priority attribute followed by the FIFO prioritizers to ensure your lines of text are read in the correct order. Next slide. Now route the original lines of text from that text-to-speech processor into a route on content processor using this configuration to detect when the slide needs to change. Finally, route the new slide output it produces to another execute stream command processor with this configuration, which will open the JPEG file which matches the name of the text file. Next slide. Now all you need to do is export your presentation slides into matching JPEG and text files and feed that directory into your very own Sales Account Manager Simulator running on Hortonworks Dataflow. Next slide. This has been Nifi presenting a slide deck on how to use Nifi to simulate someone presenting a slide deck on how to use Nifi. I'd better stop there or I'll develop a Lisp habit. Thanks for watching, and you can get questions answered at community.hortonworks.com.